how are they powering all of these lights? You know, that you see all these grand photos and you can only wonder how so many of these light bulbs were being powered. And so that taps into more of the free energy of the side of it as well.
Yeah, and when you start to think of like Nikola Tesla, and his whole thing with the Niagara Falls and understanding water, if water is moving, you have a current that's there. If that was Tesla's, true technology, because that's another rabbit hole as well. But, when you start to look at water moving, you have tons of currents in all of these world fairs. You have fountains galore, for example, just even in Portland, Oregon, you got just fountains galore.
Mhm.
When you look at this picture of Portland, Oregon in, 1898, I mean, you have fountains, you have paths, you have all these gas light bulbs. That's another one. A lot of the bulbs are all made out of gas. They all run on gas. And if you think of a static, discharge, well, that would light up a light because the gas would then constantly be flowing. So then the question is, where's all the gas coming from? And this is where the whole, like you said, when we're thinking about it, temporary doesn't make a lot of sense because why would you temporarily put up these gas light bulbs, put up a fountain, do all this? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And like you said too, with the electric, which was needed to just move the Ferris wheel, and then then the crazy part is they said they would take the Ferris wheel and move it to somewhere else. The amount of time it would take to do these things and whatever. But yeah, you start to get into the ether, is what you start to tap into when you start to research a lot of this, the fifth element. The element which was not taught to us because it was removed from our schooling system in about 1908. There was a fellow named Dmitri who started the first periodic table, and he discovered the ether and put it on the periodic table. And then when they went to go publish the periodic table, which is still rewarding him every 10 years to this day, they didn't put any of his information on there. They removed the stuff that he talked about with the ether and these gases that were very, very like kind of like noble gases. So when that was kind of removed, then people start to not think about that, and they're like, oh, everything's just not moving, and the Einstein debunked it, and then there's a experiment in 1887. And what I started to realize was all of those things were to get us away from realizing we can tap in. When I was getting into electroculture and the antennas placing all over the place, that's what we're doing. And that's what these buildings were doing. They were tapping in different ways, whether it be the material that they're using, because they can use material that can gather a charge, or antennas. Or if we flip it another side, who's a fellow nobody talks about, Nathan B. Stubblefield, he created earth batteries. And what he noticed was when he put them into the earth, they would gain a charge over time to a point that they would have so much of a charge, they would run themselves. And he was saying, like, we don't need telephone poles, we don't need power lines and all these things. You just tap into the earth. And so when you look at these fairs, these buildings and everything, they're always just tapping in to what's directly below them, above, around, everything. And that's where you can't put a meter on that. So a lot of this wasn't funded. When you have the Rockefellers and Rothschilds who are owning, and Morgans who are owning the energy systems and saying, this is what you got to use. Now you got solar panels, even though we're blocking out the sun, all these things that they're trying to give the people. Well, they could put a meter on that and you can control it. But when it's free and people are tapping into this, it gives them a different situation. And one of Tesla's patents, which if you want to laugh, was just a rod with a aluminum mica sheet on top of it, and he would just connect a wire to it. And every time the sun would hit it, it would just maintain that charge because of the material. And he's like, you got energy right there. You don't even got to do anything.
Mhm.
So these fairs, when you start to look at these, this is the stuff that you start to see, and you see it at every single one. And if you wanted to, like we were saying, if you're trying to control somebody of the energy that they can use, well, then you don't teach them about this. Even like alchemy, because I started to think, where did all these materials come from? Like they're using gold, brass, bronze, tin, silver, platinum, all these things. They surely weren't mining all of this because this is now a whole nother operation to mine all of these things and bring it into. And that's where alchemy goes in. And alchemy goes away about 1925-ish. They stopped teaching it. the curriculum all of a sudden says, "Oh, we don't want to talk about that anymore," because that's also tapping into understanding. Wait a minute, I can tap into the ether or the fifth element, and I can transmute materials from one to another, such as lead to gold. But don't want people having too much gold. That's for sure.